Are you like me and you like great books? Well, I found a place that has a lot of great books. A traditional publisher right up in Macon County, Deep Read Press. DeepReadPress.com, that's the website to find out exactly what they have. And again, they got traditional books. They are a traditional publisher. Deep Read Press does a lot of things that I particularly like, and most of them has to do with great books. So if you're looking for a publisher to publish, or if you're just looking for a place to find a lot of great books, it's Deep Read Press at DeepReadPress.com.
Welcome to the Deep Read Press Show. My name is C.L. Gammon, and I'm your host. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to our show today, and we'd also like to tell you that we are thrilled and humbled by the positive response we've received from listeners. We've had thousands of listeners across our network, and we are really pleased with that. Speaking of our network, I have been told that I need to mention that the Deep Read Press Show is a subsidiary of Deep Read Press Network, which is owned by Deep Read Press, all rights reserved. Okay, none of the legal stuff's out of the way. I'd like to tell you that this week and every week we will be offering you the opportunity to win a free book. We will have details about how you can win your free book at the end of the show. Our co-host and the real star of this show, Connie Howell, is back this week. And Connie and I will discuss what makes a publisher good. Hi, Connie. Welcome back.
Hi, CL, and hello, everyone. It's really good to be with you again, and I hope from today's discussion you find something useful and helpful.
Well, let's get this out first. Every publisher, Deep Read Press included, wants to make a profit. That's what we're in business for, and make no mistake about it, publishing is a business. And if we lose money, we will be in the NFL, not for long. Connie, what are your thoughts on the topic?
I guess publishers are also looking for good quality work, well written, and subjects that fit in with what they like to put out. Some publishers stick to one genre, so they don't accept too many different submissions. And also, they don't like people submitting unsolicited unless they've actually put out 4 submissions to be accepted. I know with Deep Read Press you've got non-fiction and fiction CL. So I'm wondering, can you tell us what you're looking for from the perspective of being a publisher? How do you decide what you feel is a good work and fits in with the genres that you're willing to publish? And then are there any genres that you don't accept?
Absolutely, we are looking for high quality, well written manuscripts. We want original ideas that will appeal to and entertain readers and hopefully will touch them on a level below the surface. It's a very competitive business, but when we receive a submission that we think might fit with what we want in a book, we'll pass it along to several of our team members and get their opinions. If the manuscript has no champions, we will reject it. If the team agrees generally, however, that we should continue the process, we'll contact the author and go from there. You mentioned unsolicited manuscripts. For those that don't know, the term unsolicited manuscript and another term called over the transom manuscripts refer to submissions made directly by an author to a publisher. Now, many publishers will only accept manuscripts submitted by literary agents because they feel like that cuts out the middleman. Deep Read Press is not that way. We will work with agents, sure, but we will also accept manuscripts directly from authors. We give all manuscripts we receive a close look, and if we reject a manuscript, and we do reject most of them, we will contact the author and explain why we decline to publish his work. Keep in mind that Deep Read Press is not a book mill. We don't publish books willy-nilly, okay? You can rest assured that if Deep Read Press publishes your work, it is because we believe in it. Deep Read Press considers manuscripts of 40,000 to 120,000 words. We don't want them much smaller than that or much larger than that. However, we have two imprints. We have Devil's Breath Press and Strawgrass Press, which do accept shorter works, and Strawgrass Press accepts poetry too. Okay? We will consider manuscripts from anywhere in the world, but most of our books are written by residents of the United States. As far as what we won't consider, here's what we will never accept, and here's why. We will not consider hate speech. We don't want to promote hatred directed at any person or any group, period. If you would burn books or burn people, we don't want to hear from you. We don't publish political commentary. The reason for this is that political commentary has a short shelf life. What is very topical today may be a non issue tomorrow. We don't publish textbooks. Textbook publishing is better left to those that specialize in it. We don't publish coffee table books, picture books, or comic books. Those types of books are image intensive, and while we publish books containing images and pictures, we want this we want submissions to rely on words and not pictures. We don't accept stationery or calendar submissions. We publish those types of things in house. We don't want games or puzzles or that sort of thing. Again, if we publish one, it will be in house. We don't accept stage plays or movie scripts. There are Those are better left to publishers that specialize in them. We no longer accept previously published works. Please do not submit manuscripts that have been previously published elsewhere in any venue. This includes all forms of digital self-publishing. If your book has been published before, or a large part of it's been published before, we're not going to consider it. We also don't consider works in the public domain. We recommend that you read the original. We will not publish erotica or pornography. If I'd be embarrassed for my mom to read it, I won't publish it. You can find all of our guidelines at our submission page on our website, www.deepreadpress.com/submissions.
Many publishers also require you to be active in marketing, like really active. And if your work is accepted, they can even change your work. I do know authors that have had to change the title of their books and really change some of the content of the work to fit in with what the publisher really wants. I know that you've had some experience as a writer with the publishers CL, so I wonder, can you tell us about your experience and then why you got into publishing?
Wow, Connie, you gave me a lot to cover. Let's start with marketing. Deep Read Press does not require authors to be involved in marketing their books, but we do encourage it. In a later show, we will discuss how an author can promote a book without spending a fortune. Sadly, many publishers do little or nothing in the way of marketing their authors. Uh, they leave promotion solely to the author, and that usually doesn't work well. Deep Read Press is a traditional publisher. We do things the old fashioned way. We believe it is our job to market books, and we do so with a vengeance. Beyond our website and this show, we purchase print and radio ads, we contact bookstores, we set up book signings, we host events, and we do many other things to get our authors and their books before the public. You mentioned titles. Titles can be a prickly pear. Deep Read Press will never demand the author to change the title of a manuscript as a prerequisite for publishing it. However, we might recommend a title change. For instance, we received a submission a while back titled Hitler Must Die. Now, we rejected the book not because of the title, but because the story wasn't original enough. When explaining our reasons for the rejection to the author, we pointed out that when he retooled his story, he should consider a new title because there were several books on the market already called Hitler Must Die. Another thing is we can't use a trademarked item in a title either. For instance, a title called Winnie the Pooh's Bedtime Stories couldn't be used because Disney owns the rights to Winnie the Pooh character and they would sue us. Okay. Before getting into my dealing with publishers, here's Connie Howell talking about her book, Thoughts of a Wounded Healer.
Hello, it's Connie Howell. I'm here to talk about my second book of verse, published by Deep Read Press. It's entitled Thoughts of a Wounded Healer. A wounded healer is someone who has healed their own emotional traumas and is now able to help others. I try to do this through my written work, and as a professional in the past, I also did this. I've tried to offer a diverse array of poems in this book, something that everyone can relate to. And I'd like to give you a sample of one of the poems that I've written. It's called Man and Boy. The man carries a wounded, traumatized boy inside. Sometimes the boy cries out for love and safety. Other times, the man takes the place of the scared child. The man doesn't know how to love himself enough to give the boy the feeling that he's treasured. The struggle arises when he feels threatened and alone. I want to hold that man boy and tell him that I care. I want him to feel safe, that he's loved and that I am here. I find writing poetry a good way to plunge into the depth of my emotions and into the human psyche itself. Though many of the poems in this book are deeply meaningful to myself, most of them are about my observations of life in general and how it affects us. The thing that connects us all are the common emotions that we all face sometimes during our life. Some of the poems come from my imagination, but basically are based in truth. I find that writing poetry is a good way to give voice to the depths of the emotions that we all feel. And I hope that in some way you can connect with one or more of these poems. I think you'll find them very relatable, very easy to read. And whether you like poetry or not, I think you'll find these appealing. You can find the book on the Amazon site relative to your country or on the Deep Read Press website. You can also find out more about myself on my website, www.conniehowell.com.au. You will hear that I have an accent. I'm originally from Britain, but I have lived in Australia for 50 years. I'm married to an Australian man, and I have the best of both worlds, the English and Australian. It is in Australia that I became an author. I live in the beautiful Blue Mountains west of Sydney, which are very conducive to inspirational writing. Please enjoy my book, Thoughts of a Wounded Healer.
Thanks, Connie. In order to give you the full story of my dealing with publishers, I guess I need to provide a little background about my writing career. Beyond farm work that I did as a kid to earn a little extra money for school supplies, my first income came from writing. In college, I wrote scripts for a radio service called Zodiac News. When I was in the Army, I found myself writing technical manuals and standard operating procedures for the military. I wasn't trained to do it, it just fell in my lap. Also, while I was in the Army, I worked for Stars and Stripes magazine. After I left the military, I continued my freelance writing career while holding down my day job. I got into book writing in a classic when one door closes, another door opens kind of thing. I was writing a political trivia column for Eagle Forum magazine. It didn't pay much, and I worked at my day job at the same time. While I was with Eagle Forum, I suffered from a case of ulcers that kept me up most nights. Not wanting to waste hours watching long since canceled sitcoms on late night television, I decided to get ahead on my columns. In a short time, I had a computer file consisting of several hundred pages of political trivia. Then one day, out of the blue, the publisher of Eagle Forum contacted me with word that he had sold his magazine and that the new owner would be in touch with me soon. A couple days later, the new owner did contact me, and without wasting any words, he told me that my services were no longer needed. Me being me, I asked him why. He responded sharply that my fluffy crap, as he called it, had no place in a hard news magazine. Well, later, fluffy crap became one of my favorite phrases, but at the time I was angry. I wasn't upset so much at being let go, it was that I had spent all that time writing columns and now I had no use for them. I chose to overreact. I plopped down in front of my computer screen and deleted the file containing the hundreds of pages of material. Well, of course, I had a bad case of remorse immediately after hitting the delete key. Luckily, I found the file resting comfortably in the recycle bin and I was able to retrieve it. Okay, I had my columns back, but what to do with them? It occurred to me that if I polished the material a little and put it in coherent order, I had the makings of a pretty good book. I did just that, and then I began my search for a publisher. I was lucky enough to locate one quickly, and in 9 months, my first book was on the market. I have written more than 60 books since then. Before I talk about how I got into publishing per se, here is Jeffrey Perrin reading a sample from his book, Death is Overrated.
Death is Overrated by Jeffrey Perrin. Chapter 1. Thomas didn't plan to end up dead on his vacation. To the contrary, he kept insisting the man lying lifeless on the ground was not Thomas Paine. Couldn't be, since he was. It was just bad luck that the Brecon detective on the scene was as dense as a Welsh peat bog. Detective Inspector Bedward knelt on the moss outside Danir Ogoff Cave and leaned over the dead body. He rifled through its backpack, barely still attached, and culled a passport from an inside sleeve. After inspecting the document, then the body again, he declared that the stiff was indeed Thomas Paine, like it or not. The animated Dr. Paine didn't like it at all. He argued at length, but nothing moved the copper. He gave his home address in the United States. He described his Cardiff laboratory an hour south of Brecon. He even leaned over and held out his thumbs for comparison to the passport print. Bedward eyed the thumbs suspiciously, then transferred his gaze to the eyes of the man holding them out. U.S. passports have no thumbprints, sir. Thomas, his gut clenched from a suspicion-inducing error, said nothing. The inspector closed one eye and clamped his mouth, his lips forming two lines devoid of nuance, like his thinking. After all, why should he doubt? He had Thomas Paine's passport in hand, taken right off the body, and the victim's face, the half still intact after an apparent fall from the cliff above, matched the photo pretty well. He'd even bet his partner that the lab would say the thumbprints matched. He laid the passport on the body and leaned over. "Do you mind?" he asked, snatching one of Thomas's still proffered thumbs. He pressed this digit to his ancient field issue ink pad, then pushed it onto a small white card. "It pays to be sure," he always said. He didn't offer an alcohol wipe as he closed the pad and put it back in his pocket along with the card. He ignored his partner's sneers. The junior inspector wagged the biometric tablet like a fan. "Never trust 'em," Bedward growled. Thomas looked aghast at his purple thumb, then back down at the detective, as if the man had stolen his soul. branded like a criminal, like his father. He tensed to keep from shaking, but it only made his tremors worse. The detective inspector made another close examination of the Boschny. He was careful, a sort who rarely made mistakes, or so he'd swear. By contrast, Detective Sergeant Bevan, now taking down accounts from the milling spelunkers nearby, swore often, in both senses. Profanity passed his lips as often as Welsh whiskey. He'd swear in court, too, if necessary, to anything. Anything for the pleasure of seeing men he despised put away. And he loathed this lot on sight. Jammy University, gits. Privileged pansies in his view.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Now, as to how I got into publishing, I worked with major publishers for years and I had success, but I was never comfortable. It never quite felt right. The publishers I worked with were always trying to change my vision into someone else's. Let me give you an example. Around 2010, I wrote a book on the history of the Prohibition Party. Now, the early Prohibition Party had many women in leadership positions, and I wrote about it. Well, my publisher decided that the book would sell better if I played up the contributions women made to the movement. I explained that I covered what the women did, and it was considerable, but I couldn't overstate their contributions and still write an honest history. After weeks of arguing with me and delaying the release of the book, the publisher finally gave in and published the book my way. By the way, the book won an award from a National Historical Society, so I feel like I was right. I became so irritated with publishers constantly picking at my vision and trying to change it that I considered giving up writing altogether, but only briefly. It occurred to me that since I understood how publishing worked, I could start my own company. That way, I could help authors like me who wanted their vision to make it on paper without some publisher watering it down or changing it into someone else's idea. I took the risk. I invested in my dream and in the dreams of our authors, and I have never regretted it. We are coming to the end of this episode, Connie. What other thoughts do you have on the topic? If you'll share them with us, please.
I guess from a writer's point of view, it can be very daunting submitting work to a publisher because we believe in our work. We want other people to believe in it too. And if it's not accepted, it can be pretty disappointing. But even the most successful writers have been knocked back so many times and had so many rejection letters that all we can do is keep on keeping on and just submitting our work whenever we can. So it's been great being with you, and I've enjoyed the discussion, and I look forward to our next topic. Bye for now.
We'll see you next time, Connie. I agree that writers should keep driving on. The difference between successful people and failures is that successful people never give up. You know, Connie mentioned rejection slips. They used to be printed on little strips of paper about 2 inches wide by 3 inches long. On the paper would be printed a line saying something like, "Thank you for your submission," but blah, 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 like that. In my freelance days, I received enough rejection slips to wallpaper a good sized room. I wish I had kept them. Uh, I consider those rejection slips a testament of my perseverance. Okay, as we wrap up today, I want to thank all of you that have entered our weekly contest. Keep playing. This week's contest word is unicorn. That's unicorn. Email your answer, unicorn, to deepreaderclub@gmail.com. Now, as I close out today, let me remind you to be kind to each other and to keep smiling. Always keep smiling.
Are you like me and you like great books? Well, I found a place that has a lot of great books. A traditional publisher right up in Macon County, Deep Read Press. DeepReadPress.com, that's the website to find out exactly what they have. And again, they got traditional books. They are a traditional publisher. Deep Read Press does a lot of things that I particularly like, and most of them has to do with great books. So if you're looking for a publisher to publish, or if you're just looking for a place to find a lot of great books, it's Deep Read Press at DeepReadPress.com.